Okay, we're just setting up the live YouTube feed. Welcome to everybody who's joining us. We have 1 minute to go and we can start.
What's the YouTube link?
I've just shared it now. Well, I've just made it live now, so I'm going to share the YouTube link. Okay, I've just shared it in the chat. Can you all see it?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Nothing.
All right, we'll try again. Let's just kick off the session. Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Entrepreneurship to the Point. Last Thursday of the month, as we have done for the past 6 years. And we're glad to be with you this evening, a different platform, a new platform for us. But I think that we're all very excited at some of the opportunities that the crisis that we're finding ourselves in has enabled us to use and to take part in. I think a lot of us can relate. We've all been saying, you know, we'll try and move our eventing platforms online and digitize and all of that. And now we finally, you know, have had to go ahead and do that. So welcome to all of you that are joining us from all over the country and all over the world. Today we're talking about the impact that the pandemic that we all find ourselves in has on SMMEs, has on entrepreneurs. The health repercussions of COVID-19 are dire. It's impacting our social lives, our family lives, but really it's going to have a massive impact on small businesses. And what tonight is about, it's about getting to the point about what are some of the bigger issues that you are facing right now that we can address, that we can give you advice on, and that we can hopefully help you to navigate over the next couple of weeks and for as long as we will find ourselves in this situation. So my job tonight is really just to introduce the session. The session will be moderated by Sean Tiernison, who is the founder of Entrepreneurship to the Point. And I'm just going to let you know who else we have on the line as far as speakers and experts are concerned. So we have Ms. Suzanne Bretan, and she is the director of Bretan Reinecker Corporate Commercial Lawyers. We then have Mr. Jonathan Cook, and he is the founder and chairman of African Management Initiative. We have Ms. Nkateko Mbambo, and she is a program manager at Property Point. We also have Ms. Nomathemba Malinga, and she is a director at Gravitas Communications. We have Mr. Pumlani Majozi. He is a business and macroeconomics analyst. We have Mr. Kagisho Mahura, the co-founder and director of Gradage Mahura Investments. We have myself, who will be hosting you tonight. We have Ms. Sharusha Moodley, who is the director at Brigman Moodley Attorneys. We've got Mr. Xavier Knox, who is a core psychologist at MK and Associates. And then we've got Mr. David LaRue. He is an entrepreneur and also the Chief Operating Officer at React 24.
Good evening, everyone. I think a little bit of a technical glitch, so I'll continue. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
sure. Can hear you, Sean.
So while we're waiting for Tebogo to sign in again, I think we've had a great introduction to all our speakers. And as mentioned, this is a very unprecedented time. And as the participants have joined us as well, welcome to all the small businesses out there. that's really during this time going through quite a tough time, both with the health crisis of COVID-19, but I think also with the challenges as it relates to your business and the economy. I think one of the key factors for us is really to delve into these various elements. And we're going to kick off the session by maybe kicking off with Jonathan. Jonathan, as a leadership expert and organizational development expert, what are your key insights for entrepreneurs to really focus on during this time?
Well, thanks, Sean, for inviting me back to this forum in this new format to talk about something that's really, really important to me, because leadership is always important, but at a time like this, it becomes even more important. There are times in history when leadership really counts, and this is such a time. In fact, there may not be another time within our lifetimes when leadership is as important as now. And we've seen how our President Ramaphosa has risen to the occasion and led us well, is leading us well. While we see, regret to say, President Trump failing the test of leadership, as so far, at any rate. So we have a special responsibility on our shoulders. Sean, do you want me to go ahead and sort of talk for 5 minutes now, or we just...
Yeah. So Jonathan, as you go in, I want to just invite the participants as well to use the chat option at the bottom of your screen. So you are able to post questions, which we will then ask each of the speakers at the end of the session, or at the end of each of their sessions. So if you do have, during Jonathan's address, has some questions, please do use the chat function at the bottom of your screen, and we will then field those questions. I think, Jonathan, really, as you go into this as well, one of the things that I'd like you to also hone in on is really the entrepreneur as the leader within their organization during this time will also be key. So yeah, on that note, please do go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. As leaders of your organizations, the weight of the organizations does rest on your shoulders. I understand that, and I affirm that. Well done in being the kind of leader, I hope, that will keep your people going at this time. Okay, to continue?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. So I've kind of put what I want to say under 3 headings: head, hands, and heart. At a time like this, you as the entrepreneur, to whom people are looking for reassurance, your job as a leader is to manage what's happening in the heads of your people. That might sound a bit strange, but what they are thinking, what they are making sense of what's going on is your job, your prime job as a leader. So think about the words you use, think about what you're talking about, communicate, give them an idea that you do have an understanding of what to do for your company at this time. Get a strategy that works for 3 weeks, that works also for 3 months, and works maybe for 3 years. I think the current coronavirus crisis could well last to the end of the year. So be prepared for that, but be prepared to express your dream in other formats. Go online, whatever it might be. Now, it might be that your business even has to close. That's the toughest decision. If it is, help your people to make sense of that, and do it now, do it quickly while you still have some resources to start up again. I hope that won't be the case. I hope you can find other markets, other ways of working, or indeed find that this crisis gives you a new opportunity. I know some companies who are doing more business now than they ever have because they are working virtually. So explain what you do, give meaning to what's happening, and manage the thoughts that are happening in the minds of your people. The second one is hand. There's no one in your company who knows the company as well as you do and is as concerned as you are with the detail of how to make things work, particularly how to make things work in the current situation. So it rests on your shoulders. But here's a dilemma. You're only one person. So the challenge of now is to be really empowering, to trust your staff, to give them something to do that is beyond their expectations, really stretch them, trust them, and see how they will rise to the occasion. That's been my experience anyway. People doing extraordinary things. Once they understand why it is that they're doing what they're doing, help them to realize that they are saving the company with you. And you do have to pay attention to details. Let them know that you have thought about what the implications are of going online or whatever it is that you have to do, certainly working virtually. Think it through in detail, that they can have confidence in you. So that's head. Heart, this is relationships. It's the heart of the business and of leadership. And it is absolutely key at a time like this. Xavier will probably talk more about this. So let me just say that normally relationships are dealt with non-verbally. Someone has said that as much as 93% of the communication in terms of how we feel about each other happens non-verbally. That's facial expression and tone of voice. Now, how do you handle relationships when you're working virtually? And I'd really recommend that you use daily check-ins with your staff. In AMI, we have at 10:07, we stop what we're doing, or go on to Zoom and do some exercises together, star jumps or something, and then hear what's happening in the company, catch up on news, say well done to whoever's done extraordinary work, and then we go back to work by 12:30. Short, sharp, keeping in touch. Then we've given each of our staff members, there are only 40 of us, each one has a buddy, and the buddies are changed every week so we can keep in touch with each other. But you as the leader need to set the tone, not just in showing empathy, which you should do, but don't let yourself be pulled down then into misery with or pessimism with each other, but empathy, and with asking your staff, do it one by one, to join you in spreading hope and trust in the future. That's a virus. Let your smile go viral in your organization, because your mood will be caught. And then there's yourself. How do you handle yourself, the heart as it relates to yourself? You need to feed your body, you need to sleep, you need to exercise, all the rest of it. You need to feed your soul with meaning. Remind yourself why you started the company, and give yourself assurance. Do some planning, do some long-term planning that you can survive this crisis. In terms of communicating that virus of hope, even if you're feeling down, convey confidence in your tone of voice and in your face. You may be dead scared inside, but portray confidence. Tell the truth, but do it confidently. That's far better than lying and being falsely reassuring, but doing it with fear in your voice. Remember Winston Churchill, you might have read in history books, in the Second World War, he offered the British people blood, sweat, and tears. And wow, they did respond. In the current situation, I think our president is doing something like that. He's calmly, quietly telling us how we're going to get through this. And that is so reassuring. So tell the truth, don't hide things, but do it with confidence. Leaders can make mistakes, we all make mistakes, but we cannot fall down. We have to keep going, whatever you feel like inside. So feed yourself, build your confidence, know that you are the one called to lead at this time, and good luck.
Yeah, Jonathan, thanks for that. So just maybe one quick question from my side. Once again, I just want to invite the participants to use the chat function at the bottom of their screen to post any questions. One question's come up, and I'll get to it now, but just in terms of empowering your staff, typically we find that entrepreneurs normally want to take the load on themselves, and has potentially a challenge to empower their staff members to be able to take that initiative or take lead. If I'm an entrepreneur that's found myself in that position, that I've not necessarily done a good job in empowering people in the past, how do I let go during this time?
Yeah, there are three aspects to empowerment, I think. One is giving people the opportunity. So you actually do need to trust them enough to give them a task to do that is significant. That's the opportunity. The second one is the skill. If you're not sure they can do it, run through it with them, help them, hold their hands, give them instructions, let them say it back to you, monitor them while they're still learning. And the third one is inner confidence, the kind of inner empowerment. And that comes from you showing your confidence. And that's a nonverbal thing. You really got to believe. And if you don't believe they can do it, then start small. Start with little things that you do believe they can do, and build up that confidence until you give them the opportunity, or else they never will do it. You tell them quite clearly what to do and how to do it if they need to know, and then show your confidence. And for those who are capable, get off their backs.
Okay, so 2 questions, Jonathan. One from Carol Botha. Carol, I don't know which company you represent, but she asked, what is the goal of having a buddy? You did touch on it in terms of accountability, I guess, Jonathan, but maybe just doing a bit of a deep dive. And then we've got another question from Trifina, from Triumphant Zoe. And she wants to know, as a small business, how do I manage my staff and ensure that they actually do the work that they need to do, and checking in on their productivity while they're working from home? I think one of the biggest challenges is, how do we make sure that during this time, especially with the lockdown coming up from tomorrow or from midnight, that our staff that they're as productive as possible?
Yeah. On the buddy thing, that is simply to try to recreate some of the fellowship that happens in the office. So we're now isolated from each other. So we just requiring people to have conversations, social conversations. You don't need to talk about work, but we ask everyone to be in touch with their buddy a couple of times during the week, and then end of the week we swap people around to have other buddies again. And it creates a sense of community. In terms of holding people accountable, well, there are 2 aspects to it. One is to try as far as possible to stimulate that inner motivation that comes from wanting to do the job well. And that's where the meaning comes in. All the stuff I was talking about letting them know why you're doing what you're doing and how important their contribution is. And then getting them excited about getting through this together. So there's the kind of inspiration side. And then as far as following up is concerned, do have regular check-ins. Use WhatsApp, talk one-on-one. You're going to have to be really, really close to people. And if you're big enough to have middle managers between you and other people, work with them. Maybe, or what we do in AMI is we have a separate Zoom meeting every day with the senior management team where we discuss what's going on. And then the middle managers are dealing one-on-one with the staff themselves. It has to be a daily check-in. And then you've got to give people some idea of how to manage their days. Not everyone knows how to structure their days. So routines are really important. To-do lists, planning their day's activities, etc. Give them some idea practically of how to be their own boss. And that's a nice phrase to use. Hey guys, you now are your own boss because you're working in your own home. Don't be too tough on yourself, but make sure you do the job properly. Something like that.
And I think, Jonathan, thanks for that. So that most probably leads to some of the questions, or answer some of the questions that we have. One was about what initiatives can we virtually do regarding the head, and we'll speak about that in our next chat with Nomathemba around really a communication strategy during this time. And then John Ockers spoke about working virtually is new to many small businesses. How many times should we check in on our staff or ask them to check in? I think very much like Jonathan said, is if we link back to having to-do list or really focused on being outputs driven during this time. So allow your staff to be able to give feedback on outputs that you've set and to-do list or tasks. There's really great tools out there as well, Dion. One that we're using as an organization is Trello, which is a bit of a project management dashboard. And there's various other tools out there that you could use during this time that creates some of that accountability. I'm going to be moving on to our next speaker. And please do let us know as well from the participants where you're from, which organizations you're from, and where in the country or on the continent you're dialing in this evening. So introducing our next speaker, Nomathemba Malinga. She's a director at Gravitas Africa. They're also our public relations firm that we use at Entrepreneurship to the Point and Property Point. Nomathemba, good evening, and please do give us.
Hi, thank you so much. It's always great to be part of the ETTP team and have our pulse on the ground and actually speak to the consciousness of the small business people that we have on the ground. And when I was actually preparing my presentation, we did quite a bit of media scanning and listened to quite a few radio, talk radio, and listen to what are the small businesses really concerned about. And one of the things that I really wanted to speak to today was a lot of leaders, especially corporate leaders, are speaking a lot about compliance, and that's such a big word for compliance, and that is having such an adverse effect on small businesses. When we speak to communications, I like to always take it back to reputation management, because really that's what communications is about. It's about managing the reputation of a company so that, when you have a good credibility, people have trust in you, they then entrust that in you so that they can then give you the business, and then you can bill and invoice and then make the money. Unless there's trust in a business, and unless there's trust in you as a leader, you whatever you communicate will not be credible. So I really want to base my discussion today in how do you maintain that trusted credibility, that reputation, so that whatever you are going through today is something that people can still endure, and you can maintain that reputation beyond the period that we are in. And whatever communication, and when you're communicating to employees, your stakeholders, or your clients, it holds gravitas, it holds some weight, and people believe what you say. Because as much as you can put out communication, unless there's credibility and people believe what you say, you're not going to make a big impact. So I want to say, I know we've got some great panelists who are lawyers who are going to speak to us later, but then I really wanted to really make the emphasis that it's beyond compliance. Reputation is beyond compliance. Communication is beyond compliance, because some things may be right in law, but it's a values-based system that you need to filter through your communications is. Sometimes it's about doing the right thing that may be. You may be right in law sometimes to cancel a contract. You may be right in law to perhaps put some people on annual leave, but is it the right thing to do? And will that result in the credibility of your business? And your credibility will ensure that beyond the period that we're in, you have partners and clients who believe in you and have confidence in you to give you business even beyond the 21 days and 30 days that we have. So, and another point I want to make is that reputation really is an easy kind of model, where it's what you stand for, included in the actions that you take. That's how you build trust in your business. And I'm going to speak about some of the tactics that we can go through in this period, but I just wanted to underline about what you do, what you say, how you do it, and the decisions that you make will make sure that your communication, whether written, whether verbal, in whatever platform that you choose, will be credible, it'll be believable, it will build relationship beyond the period that we're in today. So just for myself, I'm also an entrepreneur, and I think what Jonathan was speaking about leadership is that I really think really great leaders have a real great mental strength. And I think it's when we're faced with crisis that you see that the quality of leader rises to the top. It's really a test of character, and we can also always scenario plan everything, but then until you're in the eye of the storm, you never really know how your boat is going to hold. But what we can do where we are is just tick certain boxes in terms of communications and make sure those are in place. And then your leadership and your character will hold you through, and of course, held in that reputation. So at the moment, I think it's very important as your business to clarify what the impact of the business is, what this situation, what's the real impact it's having to your business. when you've clarified that very clearly, the next step is to analyze it and see how you then mitigate that communication. And then you then choose the correct tactics and the target audience. Top of mind, employees, as Jonathan has said, is all your employees are the heartbeat of any business. And I love what Jonathan was mentioning about the Zoom calls and the buddy system and the WhatsApp groups. Those have come to the light and become so very, very, very important. In fact, in our business, we've also developed WhatsApp groups for our clients and stakeholders, because sometimes your stakeholders are beyond the clients that you service and actually pay and pay for your cash flow. Some stakeholders are those people that have some kind of influence in how the environment influences. For an example, for our business, our biggest stakeholders would be the media, and it would be important for us to know what is in the heartbeat, what are they going through, so that we then influence what our direct clients are doing and advise them on the best strategies to do. So top of mind for a small business, so let me say a business that's turning over about 50 million, some easy things to do: send out an emailer to all your clients and advise them that you are open. You're open for business. Assure them that you have great tactics and great mitigation scenarios to make sure that you're not losing time. If you are losing time and there are risks to them, be upfront. Always communicate with your clients upfront. That's how you build trust. When you are honest with people, tell them, I'm not going to be able to deliver 1, 2, 3 on Tuesday as I promised. However, this is my plan so that you don't suffer. So number one, be honest. If you can't deliver and there's impact, make sure that you are honest with your clients so that they know that you're on top of it and that you're not on the back foot. Number two, always get the human touch. Find out if your clients are comfortable. Are they in, they might be going through their own scenario. So always play a counselor and always listen and play an ear and be a problem solver. And what I've found is that the beauty of a crisis that is when you listen, you become very design-centered as a business, because you then are a problem solver, and then you create solutions and services which ultimately will create a new revenue stream for you, just because you are design-centered and solving a problem. There's new problems that are never tested at the moment. And if you have a listening ear and you bring the human touch to it, you are able to then say, I'm communicating with you, I'm listening to you, I hear you, and I can build a service that fits and is right for purpose for this situation. And that could be innovation, because innovation is really design-centered. So I want to keep to those basic points of being innovative, being design-centered, and bringing some of those leadership nuggets that Jonathan puts, and say, leadership rises to the top, but make sure that you are trusted and keep your credibility through the crisis. Yeah. So any questions?
So yeah, Nomathemba, welcome to all the participants as well. We've got people as far afield as Lesotho, Cape Town, PE, Centurion, Johannesburg. If you're anywhere else, please let us know.
Yeah.
Two questions that's come up, and one is from one of our participants in Lesotho, and maybe this also relates to you, Jonathan, was that what happens when the trust relationship is broken during this time? So I want to park that question for a minute and take the next one first. The next one, once again, from John Ockers. He's from Nuclear Glass in Johannesburg. He wants to know if they're currently experiencing a high volume of cancellation of stock from their suppliers. How do they communicate to their customers without tarnishing their reputation, without tarnishing the reputation of their suppliers? So what would you recommend there, Nomathemba? So
for me, honesty is always the best policy. So it's always about framing the situation. So I would advise to say, write an email or pick up the phone. Verbal communication is always more trusted than something that's written. So if you can jump on a Zoom call, pick up a phone so someone can hear your voice, it's more credible. Then you can follow up with an email afterwards. But to say, this is the situation that we're going through. We are swimming in uncharted territory. However, we have the following solutions, 1, 2, 3. And if you don't currently have a solution, always declare, at the moment, we're trying to find a solution to this problem. Ask for patience and say, I would give us another 3 to 4 days, and we will get back to you with a few options of how we feel we can mitigate. And throughout, if you say 3 days, you're going to get back with a solution, stick to what you say. Again, reputation and trust is about doing what you say you're going to do. Even if after 3 days, you haven't found viable solutions, communicate with them, get back to them and say, we've looked at a few options. However, we haven't gotten to a conclusion. I would like to buy a little bit more patience and give them another milestone of when you can get back to them. You don't always have to have the answer, but you need to communicate so that you reassure them that you're on top of the game.
Yeah, so I think linking back to what Jonathan said earlier in the heads component, communicate, 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 and communicate with all stakeholders. What about when the trust relationship is broken? So I'm not sure if the question related to the staff specifically. So Jonathan, maybe if you can weigh in on the staff element, and if it's a trust relationship, for instance, like the case of Dion, where it's with a supplier.
With your people, first of all, spend time with them. Use WhatsApp. It's cheap if you, or free if you got data, but talk to them. Use the face-to-face if you can, and certainly voice. And then second point is listen. Make sure you understand what they are saying. If at all possible, before the trust breaks down, don't let the trust break. And then thirdly, what we've been saying, be honest. Just share as much as you possibly can. And then create little inexpensive things. You might, for example, send each staff member a few rands worth of data time or airtime, so that they can keep in touch with people. It's not going to cost you a lot, even though you're trying to cut every cost you can, but it sends a message that you really want them to be in touch and you are a trustworthy person.
Okay, awesome. Just in terms of, I'm going to take the last question and then we're going to move on to our next view, which is really looking at a macroeconomic view. But before we move on, a question from one of our regulars and one of our businesses, Brinny, wants to know, how does one navigate during this time? Let me just read the question again. Sorry, Brinny, it's a mouthful, so let me start again. Whilst we can appreciate that communication is the primary and probably the single most important element in business, how do we gauge or assess what is deemed sensitive in times such as these? The country may be in a medical crisis, but that shouldn't stop us from selling. This may have been seen as ignorant by some or bold by others. It's easier to navigate these fields with face-to-face meetings. How are these feelings and emotions communicated via email? Not every client is willing to allocate time for a Zoom or Skype meeting. So how do we use different means of communication with our clients and still try and convey what would typically have been that personal relationship on a face-to-face meeting? I think just maybe one insight from my side, Brenny, on this question is that during this time of crisis, it does create opportunities, and where you as a small business see the opportunity, you need to be able to go and take and make sure that you are able to use that opportunity. But Nomathemba, maybe zoom in on the emotion element of messaging.
It's also, the point I think we spoke about relationship, this is when also your client relationships are tested. If you have that designed centered approach, I can't imagine if I came to Sean and I understood the challenges he's in business, and I have a product or a service that I can customize as a solution to his current consciousness or to appease or calm his anxieties. So there's not such subliminal selling, but not a hard sell. A hard sell is very insensitive, but a soft sell that is very innovative and solutions based, I would imagine would be received much more warmly because it is framed as a solution and less about push selling.
Okay.
That is my advice. Less hard selling, maybe come back from the hard selling model and come back to a design-centered, innovative selling model. But you must sell,
Also, make sure that your value proposition speaks to the need of the client during this
Excellent.
time. That's the key thing, I think, Penny.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
welcome to our participants. We've got some NRP from Johannesburg, also one of our Property Point businesses. Miriam from Cape Town, one of our businesses over there. We've got Loud in the crowd as well. Loud is our design company that we use. Welcome to you guys all. We've got Kamo from England Falkers. And now that we need to start looking at the macro view, the macroeconomic view, because you as a small business, you need to zoom into the bigger picture as well. And we joined on the line with Bumlani Majosi, and a friend of entrepreneurship to the point. Bumlani, what is going on from a macroeconomic view?
Oh, wow. It's a very interesting question. Well, what's going on is that we are in a recession, right? So when this coronavirus or COVID-19 came to South Africa, we're already in a recession because the last quarter last year, it was negative growth. And also, we also had the third quarter was negative growth and the last quarter as well was negative growth, which means basically by the time we entered this year, we're in a technical recession, right? So that's the condition. Those are the condition. That's one condition we faced. We also had rising debt, government debt. That's been rising, shooting up and up over the past 10 years or so. So we're a country that is indebted. Interest payments are quite very high. Unemployment rate, it's been going up and up, even under Cyril Ramaphosa. So we haven't been able to reverse those numbers to get people to get back to work. Youth unemployment remains plus minus 70%, which is shocking even by global standards. There's low economic growth. Last year, we were expecting we grow by less than 1%. We grew by less than 1%. This year, the projections are still also less than 1%. And now with the coronavirus or the COVID-19, some analysts are projecting minus 10% contraction this year. Wow. So those are the conditions that COVID-19 found us in, which they are very bad, and basically we are unfortunate. So the next part or the next point is around what exactly has this COVID-19 done? What it has done is that it has produced demand and supply shocks. Demand in the sense that we are not having customers going out there to buy goods and services. As entrepreneurs here in this group, you've seen less and less people coming through the door, to buy your services, but also suppliers as well. Where things are produced for your business, you now face some shortages. That's because wherever these things are produced, I went at one point at one shop, I was looking for something and they told me, well, we don't have it this time, sir, because the Chinese in Wuhan, where this thing is produced, they are closed. So I couldn't find it. So from that sort of supply chain point of view, we've seen those disruptions, which are quite negative. They're negative not only in South Africa, they're negative all over the world as well, as we are seeing the spread of COVID-19, taking place all over the world. So it won't be easy to reverse these conditions. We saw what government is trying to do recently. We saw the South African Reserve Bank cutting the rates by 1%, which was quite aggressive in years.
But Ronnie,
And we saw also, yes, Sean, you want to say something?
is that enough? Is 100
No.
basis points based on the macroeconomic dynamics that you've just painted enough?
No, it's not enough. I think even if we were to cut it to very low levels, it wouldn't be enough, because the problem we face in South Africa cannot be resolved by monetary policy. In other words, you cannot just make money, losing money in the system. We face more structural reforms. It could be the issues of labor reforms, could be issues of educational reforms, SOEs that need to, to bring in the private sector. So there are more things that need government change in policy. So the Reserve Bank can't do much. But they say lose more money is not bad. But at the end of the day, our problems are quite more difficult than that. They could have gone further if they wanted to. But the problem is that even though these cuts have been put in place, there's one big issue here. People have, for the next 21 days, you're going to be locked up. We cannot go, there's a lockdown. You cannot go and buy using this money, these goods, because there's a fear that there will be a spread of the virus. So no matter how much you put in the money out there, as long as people are staying indoors and the fear of the virus, it becomes difficult. We are not achieving much with these measures up until we are in a situation where we can contain